Okay, welcome back to you guys. Welcome back to anyone who's joining us online as well. What we're going to do is do breathing mindfulness meditation for our afternoon meditation. And then afterwards, I'm going to teach you the 10 fetters and how to eliminate these. So what I've been doing is guiding you guys in meditation. But what I'd like to do is kind of give you guys a chance to do meditation on your own without me guiding you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the chanting to ease into the meditation. And then from there, just be on your own and just do the meditation. And then when we get to the point where we're done with the meditation, we'll come out of the meditation with some more chanting. Okay, so if you guys would like to do the meditation, you just focus on the breath. And when your mind's moving off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and bring the mind back to the breath. Okay. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Bhutang Bhagavanang Abhivateyami Savakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vichacharanang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanang Bhoto Bhagavati หังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเขวาพุทธังมหาเขวัณังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเขวตาธัมโมธัมมังนัมสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาธัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสรังพุทโธภะคะวะติ All right, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Welcome back to everyone. Nice to see all of you guys. Welcome back to those of you guys online as well. Today, what I'm going to be doing here in the afternoon is sharing with you the 10 fetters. We're going to walk through these and help you to understand what they are and how to actually eliminate them from the mind. I'm going to do this in the rest of the time that we have available to us today. But just understand that there is a retreat that we teach each August where I'm going to spend an entire hour to an hour and a half on each one of these fetters. I'm not going to spend that much time today, but in the future, you're going to need that kind of detail. So here, this can be maybe like a first real deep understanding of what the fetters are and how to actually eliminate them. And as you guys saw earlier this morning, that I have them listed out here as the lower fetters and then the higher fetters. So we're going to walk through these. And as you're making your way through the elimination of the fetters, you're moving through these stages of enlightenment. That's why it's so important to understand what these are, because you're going to need to know the symptoms when they're arising in the mind. So the mind's going to move through these 4 stages like we talked about this morning. The first fetter is called personal existence view. This is part of the ego. There's 2 fetters that make up the ego. It's personal existence view and conceit. And there's a class during this course where I'm going to deeply go into what the ego is and how to actually eliminate it. So I'm not going to talk about personal existence view here and the way to actually eliminate it, but instead I'm going to wait until we get to that particular class, which is part of this course. But just understand that personal existence view is the first fetter, and then there's all these different things that you can be doing in order to eliminate it. What I'm going to do is start here with the second fetter, which is called doubt. What doubt is where you have doubt about the teachings of the Buddha and the ability of them to actually help you to attain enlightenment. When people come to the path to enlightenment, they typically do have doubt, and you can harness this doubt. You can turn it into an inquisitive mind. But if you have doubt, this is going to hinder you from being able to get to enlightenment. So by the time somebody has gotten to the first stage of enlightenment, they will have eliminated their doubt. But doubt doesn't get eliminated through blind belief or faith. It becomes eliminated through investigation and examination of the teachings. The more that you investigate them, you examine them, you reflect on them to independently verify whether they're true or they're false, and you're practicing those teachings, you're integrating them into your life and training your mind and seeing the uprooting of the causes and conditions that are leading to the discontentedness, you'll eventually get to the point where you've eliminated your doubt. That's why I was mentioning that when someone's experiencing the jhanas, those enhanced qualities of mind, that's typically where doubt is getting eliminated, because you can see significant improvement to your mind. And you'll see gradual improvements all the way along, but it's when you get in the jhanas that you see the most significant improvement. And that's where typically doubt is starting to be eliminated significantly. So doubt is not eliminated through blind belief or faith. It gets eliminated through investigation of the teachings and training the mind and seeing the improvement to the condition of the mind. You'll ultimately get to the point where you have confidence in the Buddha, the teachings, the community, your teacher, and your own ability to get to enlightenment. And as I mentioned, that comes through training the mind and investigating the teachings and practicing them. Then there's something called wrong behavior and observances. What this is where wrong behavior is where you're doing certain moral conduct now that is unwise. Maybe the way that you're speaking to people in some situations, maybe your bodily actions and the things that you're doing with your body, maybe your livelihood and the way you're sustaining your life. You could be causing harm in these situations. If you're not practicing the moral conduct from the Eightfold Path, then there's certain harms that you're causing. But by the time you eliminate this particular fetter, that you will have brought your moral conduct up to the point that is described in the Eightfold Path. So you'll no longer be lying. You won't be slandering or gossiping. You won't have harsh speech. You won't have frivolous speech. Those 5 factors of well-spoken speech, that's an enhancement that you would ultimately need in order to get to enlightenment. But in order to get to the first stage of enlightenment, it's only those first 4, eliminating lying, slander, harsh speech, and frivolous speech. And then you would have brought your practice up to the point where you're practicing right action, where you're not killing, stealing, or having sexual misconduct. And then in your livelihood, you won't be having business in weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness, and poisons. And then you also won't be scheming, flattering, hinting, belittling, or pursuing gain with gain, that first fold of purification. That's what you need in order to be able to get rid of these wrong behaviors. Because as long as you're out there conducting unwise decisions through your moral conduct, that's harm that you have to deal with, because you're harming others, and now this harm is going to come back to you. So by the time you get to the first stage of enlightenment, you've shut down to a certain degree the amount of harm that you're causing through your moral conduct. You haven't shut down everything, but you've shut down a good portion of it. And that's what this fetter is all about. And the other aspect of this fetter is wrong observances. That's where if you thought that rites and rituals and ceremonies and worship are somehow improving the condition of your mind and your life, then you're not understanding what the ultimate problem is in the mind, which is the lack of wisdom, the unknowing of true reality. So if someone's out there doing rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship and thinking that's going to help them, then they haven't understood what the problem is, and they're not actively working to solve that problem through the cultivation of wisdom. So whether you go to an event with your family or friends or not, it's up to you. You might be involved in a social situation and you just go out to the church or the synagogue or the mosque or something like this in order to be with your family or your friends. But your mind needs to understand that these things aren't leading to enlightenment. These things aren't leading to the cultivation of wisdom. And once your mind has done that, then you will have eliminated this particular aspect of the fetter. And oftentimes people have eliminated that before they even start studying with me. That's one of the reasons why sometimes people will start coming to study with me, because they know I don't do rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship. They've been there, they've done that, they see that those things don't work, and now they're looking for the actual teachings that lead to an improved condition of mind in your life. So you may actually already have the wrong observances part eliminated from your mind. So this is wrong behavior and observances. And at this point, if you've eliminated personal existence view, doubt, wrong behavior and observances, your mind will be in the first stage of enlightenment, and you'll have a significant reduction of discontentedness. You'll be able to see it in your own mind. Okay, so then the fourth fetter is called sensual desire. Sensual desire is how the mind is longing, yearning through the 6 sense spaces, wanting permanently agreeable contact. It's longing, yearning through the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, the body, and the mind itself. It wants to see permanently agreeable forms. It wants to hear permanently agreeable sounds. It wants to smell permanently agreeable odors. It wants to taste permanently agreeable flavors. It wants physical objects that are touching the body to be permanently agreeable. And it wants to have permanently agreeable thoughts in your mind. And this isn't possible as long as your mind's in the unenlightened state. You're not going to experience this kind of thing. The world around you is impermanent. It's constantly changing. So if you have craving, desire, attachment, longing, yearning, these central desires where you only want things to be one particular way, then you can't be happy in all situations. So for example, if you're in your car and somebody pulls up next to you with some music that you really like, you might be like, wow, all right, yeah, let's dance, that's fun. Yeah, I really like that music. But then when you pull up to the next light, now when you hear that disagreeable music, you'll be angry or frustrated or irritated or annoyed. And this is all because of sensual desire. The mind is longing, yearning through these sense spaces, wanting permanently agreeable contact, where you live in an impermanent world. So you're not going to experience permanently agreeable contact. So you need to get to the point where you don't have craving, desire, attachment, this longing, yearning, and wanting things to be a certain way. So when we talk about craving, desire, attachment, we're essentially talking about sensual desire. That's what we're talking about, where the mind is longing, yearning, wanting permanently agreeable contact through the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, the body, and the mind. And remember, you're independently verifying what I'm sharing with you. You can look at situations where you've been discontent, whether it was you were happy, excited, elated, or whether you were angry or sad or frustrated or some other discontent feeling, and you can see that you were experiencing contact through the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, or the mind itself. There was some contact that you were experiencing, and it might have been more than one, right? Like say you go home and your mom starts nagging at you, and you hear this through your ears, and now you get frustrated. Right? This is because your mind's wanting to hear permanently agreeable things. And this is disagreeable to you with your mom nagging at you, right? And now maybe you turn and you see her with your eyes, and now she's got this face on her facial expression that is very bitter and harsh and hostile. And now, boom, you explode, right? This is because of your sensual desire, wanting things to be a certain way. The way that you eliminate sensual desire is through practicing breathing mindfulness meditation, like we were talking about yesterday, associated with craving, and practicing generosity. That's training your mind to let go. And then as you've trained in breathing mindfulness meditation, cultivating mindfulness or awareness of mind, and practicing generosity to train your mind to let go, then you're guarding your mind with the mindfulness. That mindfulness that you've cultivated in your meditation, you're using that to be aware of the mind. So that anytime you see your mind longing, yearning, then you can restrain it, you can pull it back, you can cut it off and let it go. So if you're walking through the mall and you see that brand new pair of shoes and you feel your mind pulling towards it, like, oh my goodness, I really want to get those brand new shoes. But then you're like, hold on a second, restrain the mind, pull it back. Maybe you've got 30 pairs of shoes sitting at home. And it's like, how many shoes can I wear at one time? I don't need one more pair of shoes, right? So you need to be able to use your mindfulness as a guard to watch over the mind. And you're looking for those 4 foundations of mindfulness, that when you see the bodily sensation starting to arise, you cut that off and let it go. That's the indication to you that your mind's about to become discontent. And then you'd pay attention to any feelings that are coming into the mind. You'd like to cut those off and let those go. And then you got to pay attention to the condition of the mind. Is it generally agitated or annoyed or frustrated for multiple minutes or hours or days? And then you're going to need to pay attention to the mental objects. The mental objects are the symptoms of the fetters. The fetters themselves are the mental objects. So your mindfulness or your awareness of the mental objects is paying attention to the symptoms. So you're going to need to use your mindfulness to guard over your mind and protect the mind. Then, anytime you see any sensual desire in the mind that is arising, you're going to need to cut it off and let it go. And this is restraining the mind and pulling it back. And this is going to slowly but surely help you eliminate your sensual desire. Then, when your mind's not getting what it wants based in its sensual desires, the ill will is going to be arising. And as the ill will is arising, you need to be able to spot that with your mindfulness. There's proactive training that you can do with your loving kindness meditation. That's proactively training your mind and kind of rewiring the mind to have more loving kindness in the mind. You like to practice that daily and then go out into the world in order to practice your loving kindness through your intentions, your speech, and your actions, where you can be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful with everybody around you. But then also, wherever you see any kind of anger, hatred, or ill will, or the lesser versions like agitation, frustration, irritation, annoyance, even the slightest dislike towards another being, you need to notice that with your mindfulness and cut it off and let it go. Eliminate it out of the mind. That's what's going to ultimately transform this anger and hatred and ill will. Doing loving kindness meditation on a regular basis, now practicing loving kindness in your day-to-day life with the beings around you. And then anytime you see any of those aspects of the mind arising, anger, hatred, ill will, frustration, irritation, annoyance, or even dislike, cut it off and let it go. Train your mind, no, I'm not going to let you have that feeling. I'm not going to let you be frustrated. I'm not going to let you be irritated. And over time, you will rewire your mind. And you'd like to catch it as a bodily sensation sooner and sooner and sooner. You're not going to be able to do that right off the bat because you have to develop your mindfulness more. But over time, you'll be able to develop it where you'll catch it sooner and sooner and sooner. If you can catch the discontentedness as a bodily sensation every single time, you're about 1 to 3 years away from enlightenment. So you would like to build up your Eightfold Path in your breathing mindfulness meditation, where every single time your mind is about to be discontent, you can spot it as a bodily sensation and cut it off and let it go. And from that point, you're going to drastically transform your mind, and you will be experiencing enlightenment in the next 1 to 3 years from that point forward, right? So this is an indication for you that you're very close to enlightenment when you start able to notice the bodily sensations every time and cut it off and let it go every time. Okay, so this is the first 5 fetters. And at this point, if you've thinned out number 4 and 5, which is sensual desire, your mind is in the second stage of enlightenment. But if you've eliminated all 5 of the lower fetters, your mind is in the third stage of enlightenment. And you're going to just see your discontentedness diminishing, almost to the point where it's non-existent in the third stage of enlightenment. That you're very peaceful in the third stage of enlightenment. Just maybe once every 2 months, once every 3 or 4 or 5 months, you feel a little bit of ickiness. So you need to be attentive to the mind in that third stage of enlightenment that you can become complacent. But then from here, you would like to move into the higher fetters. But before I do move into those, I would like to see if you guys have any questions on the lower fetters, what they are or how to eliminate them. Looks like we have a question coming in here. For those of you guys online, if you guys have questions, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or in Zoom, and I'll be able to see your question in the comment section, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. So yes, ma'am, you have a question?
Yes, please. If we're talking about the sensation, so you talked like I'm hearing the music and I don't really like it, or I see something and I don't really like it. So if I'm on the path of enlightenment, I can like put it aside. It will not make me change, if I understand right, like my moods or. But sorry.
When there's sensual desire in the mind, you will have what's called favoring and opposing, or you will have agreeable and disagreeable contact. You will see this contact as agreeable and this contact as disagreeable. By the time you eliminate sensual desire, you don't have agreeable and disagreeable contact anymore, or favoring and opposing. It's just contact. You don't agree with it necessarily. It's not disagreeable. For example, like this drink that I'm drinking, it's very sweet, right? And when you drink it in the unenlightened state, if you have sensual desire, someone might see this as agreeable to them. And it's like, oh, wow, it's so delicious, right? But then when they drink another drink, maybe plum juice, and it's sour and salty, they might drink it and be like, oh, that's horrible. I'm repulsed by that. Because now they see it as disagreeable. By the time you get rid of sensual desire, you can drink the sweet drink. Okay. You can take the sour drink. Okay. You're not repulsed by it. It's just contact. It's just a flavor. It's not either agreeable or disagreeable to you. You're not favoring and opposing it. You're not attracted to it versus you're not opposed to it. You're not repulsed by it. But as long as there's sensual desire in the mind, you'll see things as agreeable and disagreeable. Now, by the time you eliminate sensual desire, you will have certain preferences, right? So like I prefer to drink sweet drinks, but I also drink sour drinks sometimes too, occasionally. I prefer rap, hip hop, pop music. I like a little bit of rock, a little bit of country music, things like this. But I have no problem listening to instrumental music too. I can listen to all these musics and be just fine. My mind's perfectly content and I enjoy listening to all these things. I'm not enjoying anything whatsoever. You'll be able to enjoy everything because the sensual desire is gone. So you don't see it as agreeable or disagreeable. It's just contact. Right? There's one type of music I tend to not listen to, which is heavy metal music. But when I hear it, it's like, oh, sweet. Someone's listening to heavy metal. Outstanding. Listen to that guitar. Wow, that's really amazing that they can do that, right? That's really quite skillful that they can beat on the drums that way, these kinds of things. But you'll have preferences that you'll tend to kind of listen to this kind of music, but you're not repulsed by this other kind of music. Same thing, you'll tend to drink these kinds of drinks, but you're not repulsed by these other drinks. You can drink those too.
So is it considered a wise decision after I get to this point, just not being annoyed by something, but let it go and take something else? Or is it says that I'm still in the sensation?
I'm not sure I understand your question. Can you maybe phrase that a little bit differently?
So if I prefer, pop music.
Mm-hmm.
So if I understand right, so a wise decision will be to hear what I prefer to and not put myself into places that I feel that it's not my preference.
Okay.
Or not.
So when you have sensual desire in your mind, you'll want, not prefer, you will want to hear pop music. And when you hear this other kind of music, let's just call it instrumental, you'll be repulsed by it. You'll be pushing it away. So if you came to me and said, hey, David, I have this problem. Every time I hear instrumental music, I get so frustrated and agitated. My advice to you would be to listen to instrumental music. You need to put your mind in that situation and train it to be peaceful and joyful regardless, right? So now this pop music, I would suggest to you to step away from that and distance yourself from it for 3 to 6 months minimum. And then this instrumental music, start listening to this and start training your mind to be peaceful and joyful and content. Now, 3, 6 months, a year down the road, you've been doing that for a while, you're just as joyful when you hear the instrumental music as you are hearing the pop music. Because eventually, occasionally, your friends have on pop music and you hear it, and you're just as content, you're just as peaceful, you enjoy both equally. Now, if you decide, hey, I would just rather listen to pop music and that's what I prefer, you know that you've gotten rid of that craving and you might just listen to pop music. But every once in a while, you're going to hear instrumental music because it's impermanence, right? You're going to be driving down the road, you're going to be at some concert or event or some event, and you're going to hear this instrumental music. And in that situation, instead of being repulsed by it, you're just like, oh, okay, no big deal. And your mind's completely peaceful and completely joyful. So you need to go through a period of time where you're purging and eliminating your central desires, and you have confidence that you've eliminated it. And in some cases, you're going to need to distance yourself from the things that you're attracted to. And in other situations, the things that you're repulsed by, you're going to need to put your mind in that situation in order to train it to be peaceful and content. And then after you've done that for an extended period of time, and you're confident that the central desire is gone, then you're just going to do whatever you prefer to do. And that may or may not be any particular type of music or foods or whatever. You can be peaceful and joyful no matter what you've got. Makes sense, right? Yeah. Okay, good. Okay. So I don't see any other questions anywhere. So now I'm going to move into the higher fetters. These two I'm going to talk about together because they're very similar. Desire for form and desire for formless. What this is where the mind has a craving, desire, attachment for existence in either the form realms or the formless realms. The form realms are the animal realm and the human realm, where one wants to be reborn as an animal or wants to be reborn as a human. The formless realms are the hell realm, afflicted spirits, and the heavenly realm. There's people that want to be reborn in these realms, particularly the heavenly realm. So if you have a craving, desire, attachment for existence in any of these realms, your mind hasn't fully let go. So you need to get to the point where you don't have craving for existence, but you don't have craving for non-existence either. Craving for non-existence would be like wanting to kill yourself, wanting to commit suicide. So you're not interested in having longing and yearning for either side. Instead, be content in the present moment. Okay, there's this human existence. You're in this human existence now, and you can just get content and peaceful and joyful in this human existence. Whereas if your mind's longing and yearning to come back as an animal, or to come back as a human, or to come back in the hell realm, or afflicted spirits, or to be in heaven permanently, your mind hasn't let go of craving existence. So you need to get to the point where you've eliminated any craving for existence, and you're not craving non-existence either. And by the time you've done this, you will have eliminated your fear of death. That's one of the things that I'm going to teach you in this course, is how to eliminate all your fears, including the fear of death. Right? So we're going to be talking about that in this course. So here, by the time someone's eliminated these two fetters, they no longer have any fear of death. Okay? So these are number 6 and number 7. Here I talk about elimination of clinging to the 5 aggregates. I mentioned the 5 aggregates the other day when Marissa asked a question yesterday. The 5 aggregates are the form, feeling, perceptions, volitional formations, and consciousness. These are the 5 things that you have as a living being. The form aggregate, or this criteria, or this element, or this collection, is the physical form of the body. Then the feelings are your pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant. Your perceptions are your views and opinions about the world. Your volitional formations are your choices and decisions. And then there's a consciousness, which is the mind itself, where the mind has a certain self-identity. So you would like to get to the point where you're not clinging or holding on to any of these things. Right? If you're checking your hair every moment in the mirror, or you're checking every little pimple or mole, or you're obsessively worried about how you appear to others, that would be clinging to your physical form. If you're standing in front of your closet and worried about what you're going to wear and how you're going to look when you go outside, this is clinging to the physical form. And if you're doing any of these things now, this is where you're at. but you can get to the point where you're not clinging to this. If you're clinging to your feelings, like I am angry, I am sad, or I am so happy, and you just want that happiness really badly, that's clinging to the feelings. Or if you're clinging to your perceptions, this is your views and opinions about the world. If you cling to these, you're going to end up in arguments with people. You're going to be clinging to certain views and opinions, and you're going to be advocating for other people to agree with you. And it might be like a fight until death. Oftentimes around politics or other types of things like this, somebody can really cling to their views and opinions. This is their perceptions. And you would like to get to the point where you don't cling to these things. You have your certain views and opinions, but you don't cling to them. You're willing to let them go. And you're not out there advocating for other people to think in exactly the same way as you. Clinging to your decisions or your choices would be making a decision, and then 6 months later, you need to implement that decision, but there's been all these changes and you're unwilling to change your decision. That this decision that you're about to implement is very unwise at this point because all these things have changed, but yet you still cling to your decision and you implement it anyway. You would like to get to the point where you're able to let go of your decisions and update your decisions so that at any moment you can implement a wise decision. Whereas if I decided right now, I'm going to go to Australia, and now 6 months from now, I get closer to that point and I don't have the money and I still cling to this decision, now I put myself in debt because I could have just said, you know what, I'm not going to Australia anymore. Let that go. Right? But if I cling to it, I could be making some really unwise decisions that are going to lead me into difficulties. So you're not interested in clinging to your choices and decisions. And then the consciousness itself, the mind, you would like to not cling to any kind of identity. And there's training that you need to be able to employ to get to the point where you eliminate clinging to the 5 aggregates. You need to first know what they are, and then you need to be able to spot any kind of clinging to them, and then train your mind to let them go. Where you understand there is a body and there is a mind, but you don't cling to it and you don't hold on to it. You just make wise decisions to take care of it, right? So this is the 5 aggregates, and you would like to eliminate any clinging to them. Then there's this 8th fetter, which we're going to talk about when we talk about the ego. This is the conceit. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you guys what this is, and then I'm going to share with you all these different ways to proactively train your mind to eliminate it. Then there's restlessness. What restlessness is where the mind is confused, distracted, having worry or anxiety. It's essentially like an overactive mind. It's the opposite of singleness of mind, where the mind is just randomly thinking about thought after thought after thought after thought. It's just overactive, almost obsessively thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking. You might even notice in your body that you have certain rapid movements. You might bob your foot, you might tap your hand, you might bob your knee. You're just maybe constantly kind of moving. This is because the mind's overactive, and now it's coming through in the body. Right? So you would like to calm the mind and bring about peacefulness in the mind. The way that you do that is through practicing the elimination of craving, desire, attachment, using breathing mindfulness meditation and generosity. So when you're eliminating your central desire, it's going to knock down some of your restlessness. But then you're going to need to bring in the equanimity. The equanimity is the calmness and composure, the evenness of temper, especially in difficult situations. That's what you would like to arise in the mind more and more. And as you're moving through the jhanas, this is where this is being developed. So if you notice that your mind's overactive, like maybe you're constantly fidgeting with stuff and you're constantly fidgeting, you would like to eliminate that. That's your mind being overactive. And you can calm your mind through applying the teachings of equanimity to calm the mind and have it to be nice and composed. Okay, so this is restlessness. Then there's the ignorance or the unknowing of true reality. This is the lack of wisdom. This is where the mind just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. It lacks understanding of the natural laws of existence. It lacks wisdom. It's confused, and it doesn't understand these natural laws and how to make wise decisions that leads to wholesome results. The way that you eliminate your ignorance is you cultivate wisdom. The more that you cultivate wisdom through learning, reflecting, and practicing, this is what's going to eliminate this particular fetter. You can go into the world with wisdom about these natural laws and feel confident in the decisions that you're making. But if you have ignorance or the unknowing of true reality, this is where you waver. And you might have difficulties even making some of the most simple decisions, like should I eat this or should I eat that or should I go here or should I go there? Your mind will really waver like this because you're not confident in the decisions that you're making, because the mind is lacking wisdom about what would be wise or what would be unwise. So when you're learning and practicing the teachings of the Buddha, you're independently verifying the truth in order to cultivate wisdom. And you're doing this through seeking guidance with the teacher, always being sure that you retain the responsibility for your own learning and your own growth, that it's your wisdom that you're cultivating. But a teacher is essentially like a tour guide, pointing out for you the things that you need to learn, but you're going to need to do that work to learn it, examine it, investigate it, to reflect on it, to independently verify it, and then to practice it and integrate it into your life on a day-to-day basis. So it's you that's cultivating the wisdom. As you fully develop your life practice and eliminate ignorance, this is what's going to produce enlightenment. When we talk about the elimination of ignorance and the cultivation of wisdom, it's not only an intellectual pursuit. There's a certain amount of intellectual learning that you need to do through investigating and examining the teachings. And then there's that reflection where you're independently verifying the teachings. But the way that you truly eradicate ignorance is by practicing the teachings. So we could know intellectually that it's unwise to use drugs and alcohol, but we might actually go out and use drugs and alcohol. That's because we still have ignorance in the mind. There's still sensual desire, of course. That's the underlying fetter that is actually causing the craving, desire, attachment for those drugs and alcohol. But it's the ignorance that gives in and allows the mind to continue to make this unwise decision to go out and use drugs and alcohol. So this ignorance doesn't get eradicated just through intellectual learning. You need to actually practice the teachings. This is how here in Thailand, we can know whether somebody's enlightened or not by observing their practice. When we observe how they conduct themselves in the world, we know whether someone's enlightened or not. Are they angry? Are they hostile? Are they bitter? Are they polite? Are they kind? Are they friendly? Are they respectful? Right? How are they practicing? What kinds of decisions are they making? How do they conduct themselves in day-to-day society? And as somebody fully awakens to wisdom, they will be making wise decisions in every single situation that they're in. So it's the actual decision making. It's not just the intellectual learning. It's your decision making. Is it informed based in wisdom? And are you implementing wise decisions in your life? That's what's going to ultimately eradicate this ignorance. So any questions on this kind of overview of the 10 fetters? By the way, personal existence view and conceit are two really big fetters. That's why I'm going to be talking about those as one class, because it takes a lot of time to really make sure we talk about it and you understand it, and then discuss all the solutions to eliminate it. But do you guys have any questions on the ones that I've talked about so far? Yep.
Could you just repeat the 5 aggregates?
Sure.
There was the body, and then the feelings, and your beliefs, and then the mind, and then I'm missing one.
Yeah. So the way that we talk about them is form, feelings, perceptions, volitional formations, which is the one you're missing. That's the choices and decisions. Then there's the consciousness or the mind. Right, so form, feelings, perceptions, volitional formations, consciousness. Form, feelings, perceptions, volitional formations, consciousness. Or the way you're saying it is the physical body, the feelings, the views and opinions, the choices and decisions, and then the mind itself. That's the description of it. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's see if we have any questions online. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions online. So this is what I have to share with you. Oh, you have a question? Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Can you explain, please, what's the difference between the mind itself and all the other? The mind is not all the other?
You mean the other aggregates? So the mind is this intangible, non-physical thing. The body is physical, right? We can touch it. There's bones, there's fluid, there's muscle tissue, there's skin. We can touch it. The mind is non-physical. So the brain is not the mind. The brain is actually part of the body. It's a physical organ. The mind is non-physical. It's intangible. You can't even point to it and say where it's at because it's not physical in nature, right? Oftentimes Westerners, we will point to the head. Thai people, they will touch the heart when they talk about the mind because they think the mind is inside the heart, which is kind of like a very warm thing to think. I think people in Indian culture, they think about the mind as being outside the body and kind of like hovering, kind of almost like an exoskeleton, kind of like a outer layer. So it doesn't really matter where the mind is. Even if we could tell and we could point to where the mind is, it doesn't matter because we still need to clean it up. And that's the journey to enlightenment, is to purify the mind. So the mind and the body are two different things. The body is the physical organs and the physical structures of the body, where the mind is this non-physical thing. And these two things have come together for this existence. And now the mind, the consciousness, is using the body in order to communicate. I'm making sounds with this tongue and this air and the lips and all these other things. I'm able to form these sounds. And now these sounds are going over there to the ear, and that body is taking in this sound, and then it means something to this mind. It's this mind of yours is intellectually understanding what it is that I'm sharing. So there's essentially two consciousness here talking to each other, and we're using the body as like a employee or a conduit to kind of send sound back and forth. But it's really just two consciousness that are communicating with each other. So there's the body, there's the mind, and then there's the person, which is the third thing. And then within this mind, you've got feelings, you've got perceptions, and you've got choices and decisions. So all of those things are inside the mind. The feelings, the perceptions, the choices and decisions, they're all inside the consciousness. And then the form is the physical form. That's just the body.
So why are you separate between feelings, decisions, and the mind, if they are all part of the mind?
These are all things that are happening inside the mind. And it's important to see those as separate things because you're going to need to observe the mind clings to these kinds of things, holds on to them, wants them to be permanent. Like when you have that happiness, your mind might cling to it and hold on to it, want it to be permanent. Views and opinions that you might have, you might cling to those and want other people to agree with you, or certain choices and decisions that you make. You might cling to those. So you need to be able to see the difference of each one of these things. Okay. So this is everything on this topic of the 10 fetters to talk about at this point. You guys seem like you have whatever amount of information you'd like on this particular topic, but understand that it goes deeper than this. That by the time you get to the retreat in August, I'm going to explain the symptoms. I'm going to explain what the fetter is. I'm going to explain the symptoms that it's producing. I'm going to explain how to eliminate it, and I'll explain how to know that it's actually been eliminated. So here, this is kind of like an introduction, kind of an overview, and kind of getting you familiar with these particular fetters, because as you start putting together the Eightfold Path, you'll start noticing that these pollutions are arising and they're producing certain difficulties in your day-to-day life. Okay, so tomorrow what I'm going to be teaching is we're going to start off with loving kindness meditation in the morning, because we start off with each one of those, and then I'm going to teach you how to develop the mind to have concentration, developing singleness of mind, because you're going to need that in order to bring forth your wisdom and implement all the teachings of the Buddha. So I'm going to teach you how to have concentration. Then I'm going to teach about dissolving the ego, how to eliminate this from the mind. We'll talk about what the ego is and how to actually eliminate it. Then after our lunch break, we'll come back and do meditation, And then we'll talk about animal to human, the evolution of our consciousness, helping you see these animalistic instincts that are in the unenlightened mind so that you can then shed them and get closer and closer to this evolution of being a better and better human being. Because when you start seeing these animalistic instincts as part of the unenlightened mind, it makes it easier for you to shed them because you see like, that's animalistic. I'm interested in being more and more human. Okay. So these are the three things that we're going to talk about tomorrow: the concentration, dissolving the ego, and learning about this animal to human evolution. And we're going to be doing loving kindness meditation and breathing mindfulness meditation. Okay, so enjoy your afternoon, your evening, whatever you choose to do, and perhaps I'll see you guys tomorrow. Okay, Sawadee Kap. Sawadee Kap.